Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite warlock and practicing necromancer. And today I'm going to do a book review for you on financial stuff. I think it's important, especially because it's part of the series of books that I'm reading this year, things that I'm putting together for, to free my mind, to connect to my psyche, and most importantly, to enrich my own life, not just my business, my family structure, and all that stuff. You know, um, so I'm going to start off by telling you a story. This morning, I went to a car dealership. It was a used car dealership with my son's mother. And it was kind of funny because of the fact that, I was out walking the dogs because she wanted to trade her vehicle in and get a newer model. Which there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, people who want to be in the world and they want to be a part of that financial corruption, if you will always be a part of that. It's the way of thinking. So that's basically employee status, if you will. That's what they're thinking with when they do that. So in this case, it was funny. She went out. She did a test drive of a Traverse, and I was walking the perimeter with the dogs. So it was kind of funny. So I put the dogs in the car and I went inside. She was in the process of discussing financing the vehicle and with a trade-in. Now, I'd already told the guy the miles. I'd already told him what has been maintained and everything that's been done to the vehicle. It's been well kept and everything, even though it's got a little bit of a high miles on it. But name one vehicle today that doesn't have high miles. And the guy basically wanted $7,000 down. And that's on top of the exchange of vehicles, if you will. And her car is worth over $4,000 right now. Okay, she's got around $4,000 to pay. Okay, so while I was listening, when I came back in, because I had to go out and deal with the dogs for a second, and once I got them back in the vehicle, I went back in and I was listening, and I turned around and I asked the guy two specific questions, and then I asked a third. The first question was, what's the APR? And he told me. I said, okay, and how much is the vehicle worth? It's a used vehicle, and it's a $30,000 vehicle, the Traverse that she was looking at, but they wanted, with the turnover rate, $7,000 down, including the $4,000 that the car was worth anyways. And on top of that, you want her to pay you $7,000 down? No. Number one, the APR rate was below, which at this state, I'd already asked what the APR rate is, okay, which is the interest rate. How much is the car worth total and overall value? Okay. And then I turned around after this and I asked a third question. How much a month? He didn't even give me an answer. But he had that leg going like he was on crack underneath that desk. Literally, his leg was doing this underneath the desk. Okay? And as soon as I mentioned going to other dealers, okay, not only did his mood change, not only did he just suddenly sit up realizing, uh-oh, somebody knows the game, especially about credit, about how financing works. He shifted very, very quickly. Now, this is stuff that you need to be aware of. Now, for years, I didn't know any of this stuff until I started collecting this book series a couple of years ago. About 2 years ago is when I started collecting them. But I'm just now really delving into all these books and really studying them. And I thought it's worth mentioning. Now, one of the books that I got off TikTok Shop was called "I Will Teach You to Be Rich," and it's by Ramit Sethi. Sethi. Hopefully, I pronounced his last name right. The guy's actually Indian. He's from India, and very, very wise man. And this is the name of the. This is the book right here. Okay, I highly recommend this book because he doesn't just break it down through APRs and interest rates, how to negotiate for lower costs and everything. But he goes into how to get them to compete for your business and not you compete for the vehicle. It's amazing how he taught this. And this is the method that I actually used this morning with my son's mother when we went to look at this vehicle. She wanted to show me the vehicle. And I said, do you want to, you've already submitted the application for the vehicle. Why don't we go in and talk to the guy and see what you can do? Can you do it on your own? Do you need a co-signer? What do you need to do? Now, she wants to do it by herself, which is honorable, and I respect that. But sometimes, because she already owes like $4,000 on the car still out of 17,000, and that's not bad. So them asking for all that money was atrocious. Okay. But like I said, when they realized I knew what I was talking about, everything shifted. And I have to thank this guy for that. For an example, this guy deals with credit cards. He deals with car loans. It's all in here. And he also talks about your credit score, how that works. He goes into what is looked at through your credit score, how that is broken down between the three different aspects of your credit score, your credit history, all that stuff. Capital One 360 savings, optimizing your bank accounts, dealing with different things from working with a couple different credit cards, dealing with cash versus credit card, and so forth, and conscious spendings. He goes into a lot of different information, and I'm going to show you this. This is on page 237, and I want you to take a good look at this, okay? So you can actually see where he gives examples of finances and costs. Okay, this one here is high expense ratios costs more than you think. Now, a lot of times he wanted like 70% interest rate on that Traverse, which is atrocious because banks don't even go that high. I mean, when I purchased my car through the bank, and mine's a 2016, and it was already a used car with about 79,000 miles on it. My interest rate was 5.6, and you want over 70? That's fucking atrocious. That's greed, okay? And all they want is money. They want their commission, and that's what that was about. So he doesn't just give you the amount in your portfolio. He gives you the annual expenses of low-cost index fund, which is 0.14%, and he goes down through dollars worth, depending on from if you're 5,000 all the way up to a million, okay. And then your low cost would be like $7 all the way up to 1,400, and then your annual expenses of activity managed mutual funds of 1% would be anywhere from $50 to $10,000. Okay, so he literally breaks it down to you. Now, like I said, some of the books that I put together that was a part of this reading group was Modern Money Mechanics. okay, by the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. Really teaches you about how they view money compared to deposits, transfers, even. Okay, so where they're getting the money from, what's staying in your account, the whole kit and caboodle. And I really like that book. But then you get into Think Rich and Think and Grow Rich. Very, very good book. And by the time you get into business models like books on investing, like say $50 to $100 investing wise, there's a book called that, by the way, and I do own that. You get into Rich Dad Poor Dad, you understand the difference between assets and liabilities, how to lower your debt, how to get out of debt quickly, pay off your debts. And I've told you in past videos about what I've done to pay off my car 10 months early, by the way, which was awesome. I paid off almost, we paid off together, me and my son's mother, probably about $37,000 total in less than 3 years. Okay, in less than 3 years, we paid off over $30,000 of debt just by utilizing methods of compacting. Okay, when you learn about compacting, and he does speak about that in this book, by the way, then you can sit there and you can go into how to hide your assets and disappear. You can get into security procedures, how to protect your assets by getting a trust, a trust, a living trust, and a will, all that stuff. A will can be detested in court, whereas a trust, done. There is no argument. You can have a specific thing set up saying if anybody detests it, they're out of the fucking will. So this is stuff that you need to learn, and I agree with this stuff. And like I said, there's so much. He teaches about when he was a kid, how his dad did stuff. I mean, he breaks it down, throwing your money away on rent. We don't talk about money in this house. The credit cards are a scam. Stop spending money on lattes. Money changes people. And so many people today talk about this stuff. But nobody actually puts it into a scientific method. And that's why I like this guy's book, because it really goes into it. He breaks it down, teaches you about credit cards, how to utilize them, how to get cash back, how to use them for like vacation costs, how to get hotel money with them, how to get frequent flyer miles, if you will, just by utilizing your credit cards. And I got rid of most of the credit cards that I had. I just threw them. I disabled them, shoved them in a drawer, shoved them in my lockbox, my safe. And I only use 2 credit cards right now. Well, technically 3, because one's an Amazon. And I started learning how to compound the money. And like I said, this guy, very, very awesome, very knowledgeable, and you got to give him credit. This is stuff that this is stuff that they don't teach in school, and I'm going to read this to you, page 224 to page 225. It's one paragraph. Bonds are essentially an IOU from companies or the government. Technically, bonds are longer-term investments of 10 plus years, whereas certificates of deposits or CDs involve lending money to a bank. Because they're very similar, let's just call them both bonds to simplify things. If you buy a 1-year bond, it's the same as if the bank says, hey, if you lend us $100, we'll give you 103 back a year from now. Okay? That's just one paragraph. Now, what did you just learn there? Okay? Let's go to the second paragraph. The advantages of bonds are that you can choose the term or length of time. You want the loan to last 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and so on. And you know exactly how much you'll get when they mature or pay out. Also, bonds, especially government bonds, are generally stable and let you decrease the risk of your portfolio. So see, the only way you'd lose money on a government bond is if the government defaulted on its loans. And it doesn't do that. If it runs low on money, it just prints more of it. Now that's gangsta. Okay? But let's go back here. Let's go to say get ready to invest. Okay? Let's go to page 95. Okay? So we're going to go to the third paragraph down. Rather than earning a little interest like most people do in their savings account, you can earn around 8% per year over a long term by investing. Over the 20th century, the average annual stock market return was 11% minus 3% for inflation, giving us 8%. To put that in perspective, let's assume that you have $1,000 at age 35 to put somewhere. Let's also assume that your savings account returns 3% on average and that you can get 8% returns net of inflation over a long term in your investments. Okay, let's continue here just for a second. Now watch this. If you just dropped that money into a savings account, what would it be worth 30 years later? Well, that 1% would have grown to 2,437 on paper. Inflation would also drag your returns down. So while it appears you did well, then your factor of inflation, your money has the same purchasing power as it did 30 years ago. Not good. Okay? But there's a twist. If you'd invest your money, it would be worth over $10,000, 10 times more, eclipsing the drag of inflation and giving you incredible results. Now that's just from a one-time investment. So you see where that goes and how he's teaching you this. Okay? But let's go back to page 30. Okay, you notice I'm going in reverse. Now we're talking about credit score versus credit reports. Okay, I'm going to show you this as well. Okay, this is his diagram of this. All right. Now think about this for just a minute. Why are on page 30 at the very bottom, why are your credit report and credit score important? Because good credit score can save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest charges. How? Well, if you have good credit, it makes you less risky to lenders, meaning they can offer you a better interest rate on loans. Maybe you don't need a loan today, but in 3 or 4 years, you might need to start thinking about a car or a house. So please don't scoff at or dismiss what you just read. One of the key differences between rich people and everyone else is that rich people plan before they need to plan. If you doubt that a loan's interest rate really makes that much of a difference, check out the table on the next page. Look at the differences in what you'd pay for a 30-year mortgage based on your credit score. Okay? And I'm going to turn the page here so you can actually see it. Right there. Okay? And then you can go to the very next page too, and you see another diagram. So, like I said, he doesn't just teach you about credit cards and maxing them out to your benefit. He also goes into investing. He goes into autos, how to purchase auto loans and get new cars and how to dwindle that cost down that will benefit you. He teaches you how to get them to compete for you rather than you to compete for them. It's like Robert Kiyosaki, if you consider it, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Why would you want to work for money when you can get money to work for you? Okay. And then when you understand the value of money and how the current system really maximizes that from least beneficial to maximum beneficial. Say for an example, cash and coin, for an example, they don't they don't see that as valuable. Checks, not valuable. But deposit and redepositing, how you sit there and do transfers and stuff, that's where they're getting the money from. Okay? But then you got different banking systems. You got three different banking systems where the Treasury Department has more knowledge about you than any other government branch. Okay? It's got more knowledge on you than the DMV, than Social Security, more than the IRS. So you get to understand where the Treasury has all this knowledge. So it's better for you to learn how to disappear and hide your assets to protect yourself in the long run. But more so, and then you got the federal banks. And then when you understand where those banks are located, then you realize all other banks are considered to be civil banks. So these are the banks that most of us deal with. So they're going to be playing that con game, trying to get the maximum amount of money out of you. Okay? But then you realize, wait a minute, if you put $1,000 in, only $1,000, just only $1,000 into your bank account, 900 of that gets passed around to other banks. Like a casino, as long as they have it to cover it when you need it, they're good. So, but then you learn, what if I pay cash for the little things and only utilize my credit cards for the major things? Interesting how much you save interest rates wise. If you do get a purchase that has an APR, pay it off quickly. Add to it when you have extra money. But then you get into investments and you get into working on your portfolio. You start working on the buying power, and then you start getting your stocks and you start getting all this other stuff. I ended up retiring within 3 years after I began this. I retired in 3 years of investing. And now I'm not just supplying from my household, I'm helping my son's mother out with her household. And on top of that, I'm doing things for her landlord. Wow. Amazing, right? But here's the thing. I'm also helping other people out too. I'm teaching what I've learned. And a lot of this comes from books like this. Okay? So yes, I highly, highly recommend that you go out and get this book. This is one of maybe four books that I would recommend for anybody to get. Number one, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Learning about the taxation of the country. Learning, the 16th Amendment, your rights. Learning your constitutional rights about being able to make a living and how that goes with the 16th Amendment. Okay? That book really came in handy. That was Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. The next one, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Okay? Very, very good book. And then the third book that I would highly recommend is Modern Money Mechanics by the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago. Learning about the value of finances and how the system works is going to benefit you in the long run. And then finally, Hide Your Assets and Disappear. Damn good book. And it teaches you how to keep your money out of the reach of the government. Because they're going to tax your ass even after you're dead, which means your family is going to have to deal with this shit. Now, I don't know about you, but as a parent, I don't want my son having to deal with this shit. Okay? So I want to teach him how money works. I want to teach him what the school department doesn't teach him. I want to teach him what the government doesn't want him to learn. I want him to be ahead of the ball game. So if I can do this in 3 years from me, imagine what you can do. If you go out, read these books, acquire them, read them, study them, and apply them. I recommend a little bit of leeway so that you can experiment, because you will have some setbacks. You will have some well, as he said, degrade, if you will, due to, society, if you will, consumerism, and how things inflate and deflate and stuff like that. So you do want to take that into consideration as well. But if you're going to get into investing, I would also recommend the app Robinhood. It's a teaching app. And once you built up your buying power, you've got your portfolio up and running, depending on how much you put in, I recommend starting with about $20, $25. If you're getting a weekly paycheck, take $25 out per week. Just put it in there. 3% of your overall income. Just put it towards your investments. Okay? From there, just go with it. Experiment. Now, I got a lot of different types of stock, and I don't touch that stock. I let it grow for long term. Now, with Bitcoin and Coinbase stuff, I'm going to experiment a little bit with that, especially with the ups and downs for day trading and stuff like that, because you want to learn how to identify what the market is going to do. You want to know when to sell, when to trade, when to purchase. Now, personally, I recommend if you're going to get Bitcoin or any stock, wait until after hours, because then it's going to be down. It's going to be in the red, which means it's going to be cheap. Okay? Now, you can do what I did and just purchase small amounts of stuff, of stocks. Get a fraction of a stock. By the time you get your dividend back, it's going to be going 0.01, 0.02, and it's going to keep doubling, because by the time you get up into gold membership, you have the option of reinvesting automatically. So by that point, and he will cover this, by the way, in this book. So one of the things that I started learning was, when you get to that stature, when you get a dividend, you get to set it up for automatic reinvesting. So right there, you're fucking over the government right off the bat. Because underneath the 16th Amendment, I believe it's Article 1031, if I remember correctly. Robert Kiyosaki actually mentioned it as well. By reinvesting, they can't touch it, which means it doesn't get taxed. Okay? Now, the difference between us and them and the rich is that we pay our taxes, pay our bills, and then pay ourselves. They pay themselves, pay their bills, and then pay their taxes. But they've also got write-offs because of their corporations and their businesses. So even if you're working from home, you have your own business, or you are just simply doing the trading and stuff like that, you always have stuff that you can use for write-offs. So there's always stuff that is very good to benefit you. And like I said, those 4 books are the only books that I would recommend for finances and investing, and how to get out of debt, how to learn how to benefit from everything of day-to-day life for your benefit. In this case, I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. A host of Netflix is How to Get Rich. No guilt, no excuses, no BS, just a 6-week program that works. And like I said, this one here is a second edition. I wouldn't mind getting my hands on the first edition just to see the difference, but most of the time when they do a second edition, they're adding stuff to it. So that's pretty cool too. So the envelope system is pretty good too. $200 for groceries, eating out $150, $60 for entertainment. Groceries are roughly about $100 to eating out is $250, which is cheaper. My son's mother likes to eat out and order out a lot, but she's utilizing DoorDash, so that's another $20 or so added on. So she's losing money instead of going out and getting the groceries and cooking a meal is going to be cheaper. So you're saving like $10, $10 to $20, let's say 2% on your annual grocery bill by making meals at home than you would be going out. Now, if you went out to eat once a week as a treat for doing good, which is nothing wrong with that, by the way, awesome. But like I said, in 3 years, I retired. And now I've got my own business because I'm working for myself now. So it's awesome. And I owe it to these authors, these people that put these books out and really took the time to explain their unique perspective. Now, this one here is a little bit of a dry read, so keep that in mind. Rich Dad, Poor Dad compares business with the game Monopoly. Now, personally, I recommend looking at it from not just Monopoly, but also Life. I don't know if you guys remember that game, Life, because when you start looking at it from a ordinary family man or woman, I mean, what do you have to put your money towards? You know, it's not like you got millions of dollars laying around, right? So it's more realistic. So you got your bills, your car, you know, unexpected expenses, you know, all this stuff. And Life really teaches you about that and how to deal with your finances. Monopoly is more about purchasing real estate than anything. And then you adding interest rates on top of that by adding houses and hotels. So you can actually see, and then you get the property, the on the back of the cards you've always seen the interest rate, if you will, or the overall real estate benefits, if you will, of what it actually is worth when you go to trade it in, kind of like you would with a car. Okay, so I would recommend Monopoly, but also Life if you want to learn about this stuff. And I actually got that idea from, like I said, Robert Kiyosaki, who compared business and finances to Monopoly. And it really works out. It really does. So, like I said, those are the 4 books that I would recommend. But I would start with this one because this is the one within 6 weeks that is going to benefit you the most out of all those books. But if you really want to start investing and you want to get into making money, then I would recommend Rich Dad, Poor Dad to you. I would recommend Modern Money Mechanics to you. I would recommend Hide Your Assets and Disappear on top of this book here. But if you want to learn how to invest, then 50 to 100 would probably be your what was it, 50 to 100 or 50 to 1,000? Oh, fuck, I can't remember offhand. But like I said, those would be the books that I would recommend personally because they've benefited me personally. I used to be just an employee. I got tired of the shit and started, you know, it's like, fuck this. I'm done with this shit. I'm done with the BS, the dark psychology, the manipulation, the kiss ass 1 second and then, you know, the reversal the next. It's like, no, I'm done. I'm done with the games. So here I am, 47, and I'm running my own business now. I highly recommend get away from the rat race, get away from the system, learn to play the system like it plays you, and reverse it on them. And like I said in the story at the beginning of this, as soon as I started asking those questions, that guy's demeanor went completely to shit. It went to the opposite side. It did that complete reversal and left that guy going, oh, fuck, what do I do now? And it's one thing if I'm dealing with her because she's eating up what I'm telling, but all of a sudden this guy's asking very specific questions. Ooh, and he knows what he's talking about. I owe that to this book here. So, like I said, it's up to you on what you want to do, but I recommend it. Okay? That's why I do these book reports, you know, these book reviews for you, and how they're benefiting me, not just as an occultist, because you can also work with the spirits as well. Now, if you're working with, say, let's go with the Goetia, let's go with the demons, I would recommend that you work with both Viney and Boone, because one works for protection of your assets and your finances. The other one will help make you rich, but there's also others like Mammon and Lucifer and so forth that can help you out. and open those doorways for you. So that's on you. Like I said, there's different aspects that you can do. So, Argenta Phillips, welcome to the channel. The Dark Cyber Knight 3850, welcome to the channel. I'm doing awesome. And then Jeffrey, welcome back, brother. Welcome back. Hayakov Duvak, did I pronounce your name right? So, but anyways, welcome to the channel. You have no idea how true those words really are. I tend to experiment with herbalism quite a bit, and some of those concoctions I put together knocked me on my ass. Not joking. So, because I'm always experimenting with herbalism, elixirs, and powders and stuff. So, things that will benefit you with meditation and spiritual work. So, yeah, I guess you can classify me as a mad scientist because I love to study, I love to learn, and a wide range. It's like Grim Hustle always says. Read daily, but read widely. So, and yes, business is a win or lose thing. You'll have your good days, a lot of good days, but then you'll have your down days as well. So that is actually also true. And that's why I always try to give you guys the ups and the downs, but also, the good stuff. This is an educational channel, after all. And like I said, all of these things will apply to your religion, your philosophy. You'll learn about discounts, taxations, business, how to become a consumer, and all that stuff as well. So it's not just about freeing your mind and connecting to your psyche and all that stuff. It's really about education. It's about apotheosis. And it's about self-mastery, self-evolution. It's about you stepping up to the plate and benefiting. And that's what this channel is about. So that's why I always recommend that whatever you preach, you always back it up with numerous sources. And you always make yourself available to the public because you are responsible for the things that you do and say. All right? So, with that said, I want to thank everybody for jumping on here with me. It's appreciated. It's an honor having you here. And for those of you who are going to come on after the fact, feel free to subscribe. Feel free to hit that notification button if you like what I do and what the material I put forth. I hear it helps the algorithm. Don't know how true that is, but it's there. So, with that said, you're noticing I'm messing to the eye doctors to have them straightened. My 2-year-old pup decided to completely paw me last night after hours. So, yeah, he likes to put his feet up here and then give me kisses, and then all of a sudden, every so often, you go bam, like a palm heel to the face. So he got me in the glasses. It happens every so often. So, but yeah. So, anyways, with that said, that's been this book review on I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Like I said, this is a great book. I highly recommend it. It's going to benefit you if you decide to sell your own product as a witch or a warlock. If you want to open up a botanica, excuse me, a modern day metaphysical store like Wiccans and Pagans do, or if you want to just set up a website and sell your own product, like on you obviously got PayPal that you can set up a business account. I have a business account there. But also you have, what is it, Havana? No. Oh, hell, I can't remember. It's like starts with an H. Humana. Was it Humana? Something like that. It's a site where you can actually set up a business account, and I highly recommend having a business account because when you sell your product, say phylacteries, whatever stones and medallions that you put together, whatever witchcraft stuff that you build and sell off, even if you sell your services through spellcraft. Let's say you do spell work for people, like either curses, hexes, jinxes, even healing, whatever. It's always good to have those on your site. Now, personally, you can also have a business account where it just shows you, hey, I do magical training, but I also sell my services in this fashion. I give you an invoice. I have an invoice, so we both have records. So if something goes airy, we can look back and say, okay, you purchased it here. This is your record. This is your receipt. That is a good thing because it is upheld legally by the law, and it covers your ass and the company or the individual selling the product. So I highly recommend that as well. So that's why I recommend business accounts. That's why I recommend having a personal business account. You keep your two different bank accounts, one for business and one for personal, and so forth. It works out great. So keep that in mind as well. He touches on this stuff. So with that said, Beetlejuice. Good movie. So, but like I said, with that said, have a good day. Have a good night wherever you are in the world. And until next time, I am out.